Hello everyone. Commissioner in a car. Today is Thursday, June 24th. Sorry I'm a little late, but I was doing some stuff in the office, had a few calls that I had to return, and I couldn't get out to the car until just now. What's going on? Well, this is the aftermath of the June 22nd primary. That was Tuesday. I know a lot of you have been on my Twitter and Facebook feeds, but I figured I couldn't fit in an interview with someone for Zoom with Zarni this week because of the crazy schedule that we were working. But I will get back with Zoom with Zarni next week. Audrey Klein of National Vote at Home is joining us again. We're going to be talking about absentee ballots and the current process in New York, and also what's going to change next year, and all the attacks on mail balloting all throughout the nation. She's an excellent guest. She's been on before. I'm really looking forward to sitting down and talking with her. But I decided to drop another commissioner in the car to give you an update on what's happening with the Onondaga County primaries. So, a few things. Obviously, the primary went off really well for us at the Onondaga County Board of Elections in terms of the electoral mechanics. We had no major issues on Election Day or early voting or with the absentees. All the issues that we had were minor issues that had to deal with either an individual voter or just the normal, human error that might happen on an election day. There's about, at this point, 8,500 voters that have voted out of the 66,000 voters that were eligible to vote for this primary. It looks like about 12.5% turnout, which is really low. The city actually did a lot better than the rest of the county. The city Democratic primary looks to be about 14.5%. So that's rare, actually. The city usually does worse than the other areas. But of course, the city Republicans were atrocious, and Republicans overall were atrocious when it comes to turnout. I think they were around 9%. So Democrats did better turning out for the primary than the Republicans who were eligible for the primary, and that's why you're going to see when the turnout numbers come in, it'd be around 14 or so percent. Now, that is low, historically low, for a mayoral primary. In 2009, we had 24% turnout for a mayoral primary. In 2013, we had 19% turnout for a mayoral primary, and in 2017, we had 22% turnout. So being around 14-15% turnout is actually pretty low. That's, and why is that? Well, it was low turnout in Buffalo, Albany, Rochester. That's that is a trend across upstate New York. I will note that New York City actually had the highest turnout for a mayoral primary they've seen in a century. Some people are going to immediately say, well, that's because of ranked choice voting and increasing turnout. I'm not going to say it's not. I'm just going to say that might be a little oversimplification. I think there's a lot of factors that go into it. Major media markets in New York City and an open mayoral race where the Democratic primary essentially acts as the general election. That's going to drive a lot of people to the polls. A multitude of candidates that all have money and impressive GeoTV operations are going to drive people to the polls, and a more civically engaged electorate in terms of the budgets they give to their boards of elections. They actually have incredible outreach budgets over in the New York City Board of Elections, stuff that local boards of elections don't have. I think that's part of it as well. And some have pointed towards Mayor Walsh, and David has a question in the chat about that. My good friend David Hardy, who's my constant companion in these commissioner in the cars. He's a great guy. He also works for me at the board part-time, and a great Democrat. So, but he's always helpful in helping me drive conversation. He's talking about how maybe primary voters just believe Walsh will win and are not interested in picking a person who will ultimately lose. I don't necessarily think that's the case, because that would mean like Democratic voters, we saw Democratic voters in Rochester and Buffalo not turn out as much either. And in many ways, those races are the race that will win. So I think it's more than just the Walsh issue. But I'm sure it can play a factor. I don't necessarily believe that the mayoral race is a done deal in June of 2021. No one can knock that Mayor Walsh probably has the advantage. But it's going to be a three-way race between him, Janet Berman, and whoever comes out on top, and more on that in a second. So, in the Democratic primary. So we're going to have to see what happens. So we have several races we're watching that are within the absentee ballot margin. And what does that mean? That means that we have more absentee ballots back than is the raw total by which the election night results show somebody winning by. Those races include, for Democrats, the City of Syracuse Democratic primary for mayor, the Democratic primary for County Legislative District 16, the Pompey, for Republicans, it's the Pompey Town Councilor. It was a pick two race, and we have the person at the top having less than the second place, and the second place is actually a tie between two different people. And there's more absentee ballots out than the margin on all of those. And then we have the manliest conservative judges for a town judge in Manlius, David Rothschild, who's a Democratic candidate running for the conservative line, is down by 6 votes, and there's 13 absentees out for that race. There's 84 for Pompey, and there's about 600 for citywide for mayor. I'll get into the Democratic mayor ones in a second. I'm just going to get these other ones out of the way. We also have 2 other races that, even though we don't have any absentees on, we can't call final, because we're going to have to do a hand count of all the ballots for those races, because they're within 20 votes. And they're small races. There's the Working Families primary for County Ledge 5. Jana Rogers is up 4-1. There are 6 absentee, or 1 absentee ballot out on that. It has not been returned. The presumption is Jana Rogers is going to win that, but we do have to do a hand inspection of those ballots. And then the Salina Town Judge had a Working Families primary, and the Democratic, he's actually a Republican running on the Democratic line. Andy Perino is up on that. There are 6 absentees out, but none have been returned. So the presumption is none will come out. But he only has a 3-vote lead because only 5 or 6 people voted. So both of those races can't be called, even though there aren't enough absentees out to overcome it, because of the hand count rule. And what is that hand count rule? Well, in last year's budget, during it was effective for this year, and we saw this come up in the and Mike LaFleur asked, I'll answer this real quick. Are early voting ballots part of the count at the end of an election night? Yes, they are. They're the first ballots that are reported at 9 p.m., and they are part of the election night unofficial totals on our website. So, back to the hand count. So, the hand count rule was put in place, and it's a rule I actually believe is important, and while I think we can do some tinkering with the law, I think it's a rule that's been in place in Ulster County and New York City. Any rule that, or any race that is within 20 votes or 0.5%, so a half a percentage point after the absentees are counted, are subject to a hand recount of all the ballots. That means we have to physically inspect every ballot to make sure that the machines accurately counted that race. I think this is a rule that could have come up in the Brindisi-Tenney race for New York 22, and it was a very close contest, but the rule was not effective until this year. So when it was passed last year, it was effective in January of 2021. So this is the first election where this rule is gone statewide. And why is that coming into play? Well, we have those two small races I talked to you about, and then the possibility of the Pompey Town Board and the County Ledge 16th race and the Democratic mayoral race are within the absentee ballot margin. And if those margins tighten, or the results come out where they're within 20 votes or 0.5%, we will have to hand count those races as well. So on June 29th, we'll be counting all the absentees and affidavits that were turned in on Election Day, and then doing an unofficial count. And if we determine that it's within the 0.5%, then we have to hand count all the ballots cast in that race for that race. So obviously Pompey Town Board, we're talking about a couple hundred ballots. County Ledge 16, again, a couple hundred ballots, maybe 500 ballots there. We're not talking about a lot of work. But if the mayoral race comes up, which is the tightest race that is out there right now in terms of percentages, it's 0.8%. But if that race tightens, then we could be hand counting 6,000 ballots. So it's something significant that we are watching. Right now, there's about 600 or 585 absentee and affidavit ballots out for the city of Syracuse Democratic race. Khalid Bey leads Michael Green by 46 votes. Obviously, for Michael Green to win, he has to win 47 votes more than Khalid Bey in the absentee ballots. Not an impossible situation. However, if Michael Green gets more than 15 more votes than Khalid Bey, it will put this contest in the absentee ballot, or in the hand count for all ballots. Now, if Michael Green wins 77 or more absentee ballots than Khalid Bey, then it would push it beyond the 0.5% to the other side, and we wouldn't have a hand count. That's my rough math on that. And the reason it's rough is because we just don't know how many of these absentee ballots actually cast votes in the mayor's race. You think they did, and they probably did, but there's going to be a few that did write-ins. We already saw that in the mayoral contest. 67 ballots were written in. That was more than the margin of victory or the margin on election night. Anyways, it's not victory yet for Khalid Bey over Michael Green. So, every write-in can change the mathematical formula, a hundredth of a percentage, but if enough of them come in, it could mean that instead of 15, it's 14, or instead of 77, it's 76 or 78. So we'll have to do that math, and yes, I have a spreadsheet ready for it at the end of the night on June 29th to determine whether a hand count goes forward. If a hand count goes forward, all hand counts will be done starting on July 1st. We will go July 1st, July 2nd, and July 6th to try to get certified by the end of the night on July 6th or early in the morning on July 7th. Legally, we're supposed to be certified by July 6th, but we're going to try to get it done. We're not going to come in on the weekend, over the holiday weekend. We're going to try to get this done in 3 days. We believe we can do that. Candidates can observe the hand count of ballots, but unlike absentees, they can't make objections or anything like that. Because the ballots are already opened and preserved, they are, subject to a court process happening after the certification, so they can't get in the way of the certification. So it's just our teams doing the count and coming up with the numbers. We'll compare the counts to the machine totals from election night to see if there's any differences, and have a spreadsheet going ready to report those results and changes. So as soon as we're done with the hand count, we will report the results for all the hand counted races and then certify the election as close to that July 6th mark as possible. So that is what's going on in the primary. We still got a lot of work to do. Today we received in probably what I believe is the last of our good absentees, although there could be a few that come in on Friday and Monday and Tuesday. Tuesday is the last day for them to come in, but they still have to be postmarked on election day. So usually 2 days mail is enough for a local mailing. If it came from out of state, we might get a couple of those in over the next few days, but I wouldn't expect more than a dozen good ballots to come in over the next 3 days. We also have to check those absentees against the voted history. We've already done that today. Out of all the absentees returned, about 850 absentees countywide, only one absentee did the person vote on early or on election day, and that was actually an election inspector who worked early voting, voted at early voting after already submitting their absentee ballot. That is allowed. It's perfectly legal. That's why we do this check, and that's why we can't open absentees until after election day. That may be changed next year. It will be changed next year. So, and then we also had one affidavit ballot where the voter voted on election day, as well as doing an affidavit ballot. They voted in the party they were registered in, a Democrat, and then claimed to say that they should have been Republican and wanted to vote by Republican affidavit. When we did the voter research and researched that they voted on election day, the Republican affidavit was no longer good, but we don't know how they voted in the Democratic primary because they had already voted on the machine. So that is another check that we do to make sure that even if they do an affidavit ballot, we got to make sure they didn't cast a ballot in the machine as well. And so those two ballots have been pulled, and they will not be part of the count on election day. David asked a good question: how many affidavits will count, and what is the biggest reasons they don't count? For a primary, the biggest reason they don't count is because they don't enroll in a party, or they're not enrolled in the party they believe they're enrolled in. A lot of times when people register to vote, they enroll in no party or a different party, but yet they vote Democratic or they vote Republican at every general election, and they assume they're a Democrat or Republican. And so they go and try to vote, and they can't, so they have to do an affidavit. That's the most common reason for an affidavit that is no good. The most common reason for affidavits overall are people move, and the voter registration hasn't been updated. So in this election, we had 37 good affidavits, although one of them just got taken out, and 18 no good affidavits in this primary election. So a decent amount for a primary, but not an overwhelming amount. And we're already gone through and ruled on all of those, and now we're waiting to open those with our absentee ballots. Candidates and campaigns are about to get some data that we haven't been able to provide before. We are scanning in the fronts and backs of all the absentee envelopes. You may remember last year during the absentee circus that we had with all of the statewide Republicans coming in trying to affect the race for SD 50 and challenge ballots. Our staff had to work ridiculous hours just to provide photocopies of fronts and backs of envelopes to these out of state or out of area attorneys so they could decide whether they wanted to challenge ballots. Because of that, we researched some ways to get this done in a better way, anticipating that this might happen, and we have a scanner that's on loan from our registration vendor NTS. Thank you, NTS. And we're testing that out in this primary. when we're able to scan in the fronts and backs of these envelopes without harming the envelope at all, and provide that data to any campaign that signed up for our data website, which was featured recently in WNYC's article about data regarding early voting and other things. Our little county in Onondaga was shown as an example of a way to do things right, and so that data will be uploaded to that website hopefully by the end of today, maybe early tomorrow morning. And that way they can look at these envelopes before they come to the absentee opening on Tuesday, prepare any objections that they have, or hopefully see that there are no objections to make. And we can have a more efficient process on Tuesday. Judith asked, do we ever call independents to be poll inspectors? If so, for which party? In Onondaga County, on the Democratic side, I have enough Democratic enrolled inspectors that I have not had to open up my process to independent or non-enrolled voters. In the Republican Party, because they have such lower numbers in the county, and especially inside the city of Syracuse, they have opened up to conservatives, non-enrolled, and independents party members, although that's not a party anymore, and allowing them to act as inspectors, especially inside the city of Syracuse. So the law does call for us to have Democrat or Republican inspectors, but we also have to make sure that we're able to staff the polling places. That's more important than that. So sometimes somebody is acting as a Republican inspector when they're a non-enrolled inspector, or non-enrolled voter, but they're acting and deputized by the Republicans to act there if they don't have enough Republicans. So that is something that happens. Let's see here. I don't know if I see any other questions in the chat. I'm going to get back to the office and try to get some more stuff done. Things are going really well here. We've got such a good team on both sides of the aisle at the County Board of Elections. I can't tell you how many times the Onondaga County Board staff has gone above and beyond to get this done and make sure that everybody gets an accurate count. Often we are hunting for 20 minutes to make sure that one ballot that should be counted, we can verify was counted. And most of the time we can, but we double check that and we make sure everything is equally getting done. Right now, the last 2 days, we've had several different processes running. We had our audit of our 3% of machines, and that was done, and we found that 3% audit was perfect. That the election day machines matched the scans of the separate scanner unit that we had in the Board of Elections, so that was done. We've are working our way through opening all the supplies. That's almost done of the 60 polling places to make sure no absentee ballot envelopes are stuck in there. We opened all of the absentee ballots, not the bags, not the envelopes, from all of those polling places on the first day. We stamped those in and logged those in, so those votes will count on Tuesday. We took every one of the electronic poll pads that we used this election. That's about 170 electronic poll pads, and we made sure that all the data had been uploaded to our election system and then downloaded, and those voters, all 8,500, got voter history showing that they voted, and then we were able to send that out to New York State. We're waiting tomorrow results from the New York statewide canvas, comparison for affidavits and absentees to see if anybody voted in another place where there's nothing physically stopping somebody from voting by affidavit in Onondaga County and then driving up to Oswego County and voting affidavit there, except for this cross-check that we do. So we do this cross-check to make sure that they can't do that. And then finally, we we have to get ready for we're scanning in all these absentee ballots now, and we're getting ready for the opening for the absentee ballots on Tuesday, June 29th. So a lot of work to get done. A lot of work has already been done, and I feel really good about the performance of my team and my co-commissioner and everybody. We all worked really well together this election, and we're looking forward to getting it certified and maybe taking a little time off and getting ready, because the general election starts soon, and we got to get back into registration, start registering voters, and see where those voter registration levels go to. And then, of course, after the primary, the party switch will happen. For the last 4 months, since February 14th, anybody who tried to change their party has been held, and that party change has not happened. So expect 7 days after the primary once we start registering again, we're going to do the switch, what we call the switch, which switches voters to the new party they requested to be at, and that will be done very shortly in July, and I'm going to hopefully have some numbers for you. Oh, speaking of numbers, I'm a little late on my Wonky Wednesday article again. Tuesday was a rough day. It was a lot of stuff done. I didn't have time to sit down and write the article, and I was hoping to write it last night, but to be quite honest, when I got home, I was exhausted. So I'm going to write it up, and it should be out on Friday. It's a great article about the overview for the county legislature. I've done through all the towns. I'm going to do an overview of the county legislature. We're really going to take a look at how the redistricting process in 2010 affected the maps that we have, and what it did to create the Republican supermajority that was on the legislature for a very long time, up until last year, where we finally broke the supermajority. But now we're trying to flip the ledge, and what the prospects are for that. I think that data will be very illuminating, and it will fight against some of the weird arguments that are out there about what happened in 2010 and what could happen in 2022 if we're not, careful in what happens at this election, and demand that a better redistricting effort comes out of our Onondaga County government. So, thank you very much. Enjoy the day. I hope to be reporting to you news on Tuesday that we have some clear winners, and we're not going to have many hand counts, and we're going to be able to certify this election by the end of next week. But if not, we're going to work it, we're going to get it done, and our team is going to get the right result done, and make sure that the accurate result is done. All right, bye-bye.